Welcome to Wisdom for the Wilderness, a weekly podcast by the pastors of Overland Church, where we talk about the Bible, theology, very practical things, and sometimes we answer questions from listeners. And so that's what we're going to do today.
Right.
We have a question, and Josh, how was that question framed?
It was very simple. What do you think about IVF? In vitro fertilization. So not a complex question, just what do you think?
Not a complex question, but a very complex answer.
That's right.
Man, and so first, I just want to talk about the fact that when you are dreaming about life and you're thinking about your future and you think you want to have kids, no one really walks into marriage going, it's going to be hard to have children.
Right.
And the reality is, it's not always easy to have children.
Yeah.
And what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Well, increasingly, for whatever reason, infertility rates are rising, and
right.
So, I don't know what conspiracy theories we want to take on those things, but the reality is that a whole lot of people, a whole lot of Christians are going to deal with infertility in their marriages.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are some things we know about that. One, we know the higher the age you are,
right,
the less fertile you are. And
yes.
with couples getting married later in life, into their, not even starting into their 30s, well, this is obviously going to be a problem. And so, I think there are many reasons to get married younger. The younger, the better. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Then I think we also know that there are environmental factors that are causing testosterone rates to plummet.
Right.
And now what all those environmental things are, do we know exactly? There's probably really good research on it, but I don't know it.
Well, I have my theories, but I don't want to put them out there on the podcast because this is not like a health podcast. We're not health experts. But,
no, not at all. But that's a real issue. And so then I would just right off the gate want you to hear compassion coming from our voices.
And just personally, both of our families have dealt with infertility in different ways, and so it's something that we know firsthand.
Right.
It's an interesting sorrow. It's not a sorrow for something you've lost. It's a sorrow for something that you can't have.
Right.
And so it's one of the most unique human experiences in the world. And that's why I think that the Bible draws on infertility so deeply and so often.
Right.
Because it's all across Genesis, it's all across the Bible. This unique sorrow that is essentially creation going wrong.
Right. That's right. It's part of the broken world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Genesis 30, Rachel's crying out in this deep anguish.
Right.
1 Samuel, you've got Hannah crying out, but you see it, and the desire to have children, and the other thing that we would acknowledge that sometimes there's infertility. You can't get pregnant. There's other times you can't stay pregnant.
Right.
There's miscarriages. There's, birth defects and those kind of things are really, really hard losses.
Yes.
So we want to be compassionate there. I also want to say it's a right thing to desire kids.
Absolutely.
And children are a blessing from the Lord. They are a gift. It's wild to me sometimes. It seems like in the brokenness of the world, it seems so unfair that there are people who can get pregnant that don't want to have children, and there's people who want to have children that can't get pregnant. Yeah. And so we just lament those things and that brokenness.
Yeah.
If you're listening today and that's you, man, just know that your church loves you and cares for you. A lot of times I have watched pastorally people who are trying to get pregnant and can't, they recluse.
Yeah.
They draw back because if you show up to small group and someone else is we're pregnant again with their fifth child. Like it
Right.
can get a bitterness in your heart. I think that's natural.
Absolutely.
I think you need to fight against that.
Yep.
And you don't need to recluse, and you need to be open. And like you at the same time, your community group can pray for you and love you and be sorrowful for you and to share in grief with you and celebrate someone else at the same time.
And I think in order to have people do that with you, there does need to be at least some level of openness about it.
Transparency. Yeah.
This is obviously a very private issue, but at the same time, within your community, whether that's community group or just your closest friends, like you need to be sharing, hey, we're having trouble getting pregnant. This is what we've been through. People would love to pray with you and walk through that with you. There's plenty of couples, including, ourselves and our wives, that have been there and can feel what you're feeling with you, and you don't have to bear it alone.
That's right. So that's just that would be the encouragement where don't do this alone, do this in community. Now, as we kind of like start answering the question, let me give a brief explanation of what IVF is.
Right.
I remember the first time I looked this up.
Okay.
And it's because I had a family member, extended family member, not like my sister or anything, or brother and his wife, but a family member that had it done.
Yeah.
And that family member was in a lesbian relationship, so it was two women. And so, like, it was a real head scratcher for me. I'm going like, wait a second now, what's going on here?
Uh-huh.
And I still have questions about some of the things there. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. In vitro, IVF is what it's known for, in vitro fertilization. And it means that fertilization happens outside the body in a lab.
Yeah.
And so doctors will, they use a hormone for the woman. They stimulate the ovaries, produce a bunch of eggs. They basically go in with a needle and they harvest those eggs. Then after they've been retrieved, they're brought into the laboratory and they're fertilized with sperm. Now, where that sperm comes from, we'll talk about that later. And that I think ethically that matters.
Yeah, for sure.
And then as they're fertilizing those eggs, several embryos are created. A few then are implanted back into the womb of the woman. So now she's got, so it was her eggs removed, fertilized outside the womb, brought back in the womb for her then to grow those babies. And it's typically multiple embryos that are implanted. They do that because often not all of them make it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do have families that will have triplets or quadruplets or
whatever they
else.
Also are expecting a lot of times that if there are multiples that they'll implant, they will abort some of them. And I assume that's based on the cost and the
parent's choice.
Right. But the reason that kind of the standard way of doing it is that way is because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you want to make the chance of success as high as possible.
And so then, because you've got multiple embryos then that don't get implanted as well, then, and this is where we'll get the ethical question of it later on, the embryos are either frozen or discarded. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the process works, and then the woman would carry the baby to term.
Yeah.
Now, there's other things that happen in IVF.
Right.
We've got surrogacy. That's
Absolutely.
another thing to look at. So a lot of celebrities are doing this. So rather than the woman carrying the baby, they take her egg and the husband's sperm and they put it in a surrogate mother, and the mother brings that baby to term. And that's just so that the mom isn't slowed down by the pregnancy. Now, there are other times that surrogacy happens for health, like legitimate health reasons, but that's another part of the question. And so there's, like, you can already hear in all of that the ethical concerns beginning to come out.
Right.
And in my mind, it seems like we are beginning to play God a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, especially when you just start imagining it out, the science and eugenics and the selection yeah. So, Josh, walk us into the ethics of it.
Oh, goodness. So I think, we start biblically with understanding that every human being from the time of fertilization to the time of natural death is made in the image of God. And so when we talk about embryos, we are not talking about some little, squiggly in a I don't know, science thing.
Right. A test tube or whatever.
Test tube, yeah. We are talking about human beings made in the image of God.
Right. So we would just pause there to say we believe the Bible teaches that life starts at conception.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So when the sperm enters the egg and the magic is happening, God is doing his thing, he's knitting them together in the womb, we believe that's when life begins.
The general revelation, which is the science behind this, backs that up because you have the male has certain DNA, the female has certain DNA. Once that sperm and egg come together, that embryo has unique DNA. Does it come from the father and mother? Absolutely, but it is a unique DNA. It is not the mother. It is not the father. It's not just some parasitic cell from the mother. It is a unique human life.
Right.
So general revelation and special revelation both back that up. Then the next step is, God had a certain intention in the creation of male and female to be fruitful and multiply. And the normative way that God designed this to work is through the sexual union. And so we're just kind of marking out, like we're already outside of what is normative. That doesn't mean that it's always wrong.
Right.
But it does mean that this is somewhere we should tread very, very carefully when we are interfering with the normative way that creation was designed to work.
Right.
So all of those things said, I think there are three issues in what you were describing that are problematic with IVF. So number one is the freezing, stockpiling, and destruction of embryos. Right. So they're making more than they will implant, and some estimates, I don't know if we actually know the real numbers, but some estimates are between 1 to 1.5 million embryos are being stockpiled in freezers today.
Yeah, they're being frozen. Right.
And they are essentially going to be destroyed at some point.
Right.
And that's highly problematic. That is equivalent to abortion. I mean, that is abortion.
Right. And so if you look at it that way, that's like mass genocide.
Right.
When that would happen.
Yeah. So that's the first problem. The second problem is genetic selection, which is increasingly becoming a part of this. So they have the ability now to analyze the DNA of those embryos, and they can choose which ones they want to keep. And sometimes that's based on, well, this embryo has a marker for a certain disability, whether that's Down syndrome or autism. And there's even questions in terms of when people are pregnant naturally, some of the genetic testing that is being done in advance.
Right.
There are ethical questions about that.
Absolutely. And that's getting pushed way down their line, way faster than I feel comfortable with. And, there's certain countries where like there are no Down syndrome babies born anymore because they're aborting them. There are, if they can figure out that there's something wrong, we'll get rid of that. We'll discard that child.
Yeah, and the medical community is trying to increase the number of markers they can identify, even though a lot of these markers aren't a quote-unquote death sentence for that disability.
Right.
It's just a predisposition
towards
that disability. But then, you take it a step further. There are people, they want a child with blonde hair and blue eyes. And so they are only taking embryos with those markers, or they only want a male. And in some cultures, there is a much higher desire for boys than girls.
Yeah, well, the abortion statistics in America would show
Yeah.
there are way more girls aborted than boys aborted.
Yes.
So, and to me, all of that is so damning.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and scary. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's the third?
The third thing is the aborting that takes place after the implantation. So we said already the way that IVF technicians want to do this is they want to have the chance of there being multiple implantations. And then they're going to advise you, well, you can't have 5 babies. You can't have triplets.
Right.
Let's just terminate, that's the nice word, terminate 3 of those. And you can have twins or you can have 1. And obviously, that's the termination of a human life. So I think those 3 issues are the problematic issues with the way IVF is normally done. Then you bring up surrogacy. Surrogacy is another issue in terms of the women that are tend to be used as the surrogates.
Yep.
These are women who are taken advantage of, who come from a lesser, economic strata that are taken advantage of by wealthier, like you said, celebrities, gay men. And they are taken advantage of. And then obviously this is incredibly emotionally and psychologically damaging to surrogates, because you naturally, as a mother, have a bond with that child.
Yep. And
then it is taken from you. And so it's highly problematic in all of those 4 areas.
Yeah. Yep. So what do we think about it?
That was the question. What do you think?
So 2 years ago, Southern Baptist Convention passed a resolution on this. You pulled up the resolution. Yeah. I was there for it. Let me explain what a resolution is, and in some ways, it is when Southern Baptists convene for 2 days out of the year, they will put forth a number of resolutions that just say, hey, these are some things we want to emphasize, or these are some things that we may be concerned about, that seek to be kind of culture shaping, informing resolutions, both inside and outside of the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, do they do any of that? Only to a small degree, I would argue. Mm-hmm. And they put these up, and we talk about it. And so
that can happen on a national level. At the SBC, we do the same thing. At the
state level.
Even at the associational level, we could pass resolutions. And they don't bind churches to those viewpoints necessarily, unless they're a change of the statement of faith, the Baptist faith and message. But
that would be that would be a bylaw.
Okay, so but resolutions also
aren't binding.
They do, however, guide entities, right?
They do. So we could put forth a resolution, say, on college ministry, and saying that we believe college ministry is really important, and then the North American Mission Board will go, okay, we need to put more emphasis on college ministry.
Right.
So when particularly ones on ethics get put forward, the Ethics and Religious Liberties Committee then pick up those resolutions, and this is the type of things that they're thinking about and helping churches think about.
Yeah.
So read the resolution.
Yeah. You want me to read the whole thing? It's
no,
4
you don't
pages.
Have to. Not the whole thing.
Okay. The title of it, if somebody wants to look it up, is On the Ethical Realities of Reproductive Technologies and the Dignity of the Human Embryo. Every resolution starts with kind of like a foundation, these statements that start with whereas.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of these whereas statements, and these are the things that we know to be true or come from our statement of faith or past things we said, and then it switches to resolved, which are the statements of this is what we think ought to be the case. So the whereas statements cover essentially everything we've already talked about, so I won't repeat that. But I think here's the meat of it. Resolved that the messengers of the Southern Baptist Convention meeting in Indianapolis, Indiana, June 11th, 12th, 2024, call on Southern Baptists to reaffirm the unconditional value and right to life of every human being, including those in an embryonic stage, and to only utilize reproductive technologies consistent with the affirmation, especially in the number of embryos generated in the IVF process, and be it further resolved that we affirm all children, no matter the circumstances of their conception, are gifts from God and loved by Him. And it goes on to promote adoption, including the adoption of frozen embryos, what's sometimes called snowflake adoption. But the meat of it is there that, and this was picked up by the national media as kind of a anti-IVF statement when it wasn't really an anti-IVF statement. It was a statement that was saying we need to only utilize IVF within certain boundaries.
Right. Ethical guardrails.
That's right.
And so let's talk about then. So this would be our not that I'm necessarily swayed by this, but
Right.
going into it, like I agreed. I voted for this resolution.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what those guardrails are, just real plainly. It's the husband and wife, egg and sperm that are making the baby.
Yeah.
That's ethical issue number one.
Right.
I think more importantly, probably one of the most important pieces of this, then embryos should not be destroyed or treated as disposable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So that's the we can't abort those.
Right.
We can't destroy those. We can't pretend those aren't life. And so every embryo created should be given the opportunity for life.
That's right.
So we have a family connected to our church. They don't go to our church, but they in the pursuit of having children have chose to do ethical IVF. And so every one of those embryos that is fertilized is sitting in a container, and they plan to have every one of them.
Yeah.
And the doctor said there's 10 of them, and they went, okay.
Yeah.
That can mean you have 10 children. And they said, praise God.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like they're pursuing it under the ethic guidelines there.
Yeah. And let's just note that there are countries that have these guardrails in law. And so I think Italy is one of those. Of course, it's a Catholic country. Catholics have a very robust doctrine, ethic of human life and reproduction. And so in Italy, I don't believe you're allowed to have this kind of Wild West version of IVF. It is within those. And one of the things that I think as Christians we ought to, when we are able to push towards, is for there to be these types of regulations of the IVF industry put into law as well, not just personally, but because this is a human life issue, no one should be allowed to abort children. No one should be allowed to freeze children indefinitely and destroy human embryos. Those things ought to be stopped by the government as well.
Right. Yeah. So those are essentially the guardrails that you put on it. And so you're limiting it. We're not talking about eugenics. We're not talking about, aborting the child if we don't like the genetic markers, those kind of things. So that's where we'd say, okay, this would be ethical. This is where it would be ethical. Now, pastorally, there's just some advice that I would give, and not everyone listening who may be struggling with this can control this,
right?
But have them babies early and often. That's the number one thing. Like I would just tell you, the world has told us a lie that we need to wait to have children. I just don't believe that to be true. I think that's a ploy of the devil.
Yep.
So have them early and often.
This is, IVF is becoming the security policy for a lot of women who are pursuing a career. So that in their 20s, because they know they're going to have to put in a decade or two to get where they want to career-wise, they're having their eggs frozen.
That's right.
With the anticipation that when they're in their 40s or 50s, they're going to have children then.
Yeah.
Which is highly problematic
Right.
as well, and should not be a Christian standpoint towards family and towards career.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, there's a reason they're harvesting their eggs in their 20. Obviously, they just have more of them, but health reasons, knowing that in 10 or 15 years they're going to try to have kids. And to me, man, I just think we ought not think that way.
Right. And even when we're having counseling with couples, premarital counseling, and we're talking through sex and children and those types of things, one of the things that I say, I imagine you say something really similar, is no matter how you land on the ethics of birth control, you should, even if you use birth control, when you are getting married, you are saying to God, we are ready for the gift of children. And so if that birth control fails on the honeymoon and you get pregnant on the honeymoon, then praise God. That's where your heart has to be going into marriage. So, you don't go into marriage with the idea of, well, we have to be married for 5 years before we'll even consider having children. That should not be your mindset. Children, marriage, and sex are a whole package that God gives us together. And
they are a gift. They are a blessing, and they come together. So that's the first thing I would say. The second piece of advice I would say is I think you really should consider adoption.
Yes.
Foster care, in any of those things. I would actually push you, as if you're a young couple, more in the adoption lane.
Right.
Over the foster care lane. Maybe you and I we have pretty strong opinions on that. We could share that at a later date. But I would push you towards adoption.
Yeah.
There are children that need a mother and a father.
Absolutely.
Out there. And it would be a great blessing to you. I just think this all the time as an adoptive father. It's one of the greatest blessings in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't look at my son and think, well, this is my biological son and this is my adopted son. That division does not exist. We would not love our adopted son more if he would have been from my sperm and Jennifer's egg and she had them. Like there would not be the so. I would say in that young married couple, I would tell you to adopt a baby.
Yeah.
Right. I would tell you to adopt a baby as early as you can adopt a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say that the snowflake adoption is also another great option. I know that one of the great kind of burdens for women with infertility is not just having a child, but having the experience of pregnancy and giving birth. And so that is one of those, strange modern opportunities. And these are 1 to 1.5 million children that are going to be killed. And so if you can be part of the solution to that, that's another option as well.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I would say is that not having children and not ever being able to have children is also okay.
Yeah.
You hear me talk a lot about a man named Harris and Karen Presley tried to have kids and never could have kids, never felt led to adopt, but man, did they pour into their church. Right. Man, did they disciple families in their church. I worked for Harris. He gave me a job when I was like a seventh grader. And I worked for him on and off for years. And, if I called him, he's like a dad to me.
Yeah.
And he calls me son. Hey, son, if I called him today, I hadn't talked to him in 6 months. He'd say, hey, son.
Yeah.
So you can be fulfilled. It's foolish to think that having a child is going to fulfill you anyway.
Right.
And that your identity is rooted in being a mother or a father.
Yeah.
It's not. And so
Yeah, and what you're talking about, just to be clear to our listeners, is not a decision to be childless, but it is when the circumstances of life mean we can't have children for some reason.
Right.
Then it's okay to make that decision to not pursue adoption, not pursue other things. Right. And you're making that decision not for the selfish reasons that a lot of people in the culture are deciding not to have children. Oh, we want to have 2 incomes and be able to,
Right.
go to Europe whenever we want to. You're
Right.
making it for the kingdom purposes of we're going to pour our life into others through our local church.
Right. Yeah. You're not setting out to be dinks, double income,
Yes.
no kids. You're setting out to go, well, it wasn't in God's plan for us to have children. We're still going to make disciples. We're still going to, because I want you to hear this, and this is, I think, something we struggle with, but your identity is in Christ. It is not in whether or not you're a mother or a father.
Right.
And man, a lot of things go wrong when you are parents and your identity is in parenting.
Yes.
Like a lot goes wrong with that. No, you are a son or daughter of God, made in his image, created with purpose, given a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be some people who are single.
Yeah.
And you will be able to fulfill the mission God gave you. There are going to be some people who are married and no kids, and you're going to be able to fulfill the mission God gave you. I mean, obviously, we've got great examples in Scripture of people who were single and did incredible things for the sake of the gospel. So, there's a lot of things that come back in here into trusting God, trusting his plan, just being faithful. If the Lord does lead you down that path towards ethical IVF, I would just say, in community, in conversation with the right people around you, pursue it the best, most ethical, God-glorifying way you think you can.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
You got anything else?
I just want to commend the person who asked this question, that asking questions like this, especially around reproductive technologies, and that's what we have to do. We can't be a people who just accepts what has become normative in the culture without questioning it. And there's going to be things that you and I have not even imagined that are going to come up in the next 10 to 20 years. And we're going to have to say, well, slow down. Let's look at this carefully and biblically.
I remember ethics class in college and some of the questions that would get asked, and you're like, that's never going to happen. But and then so many of those things have happened.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think about using robots for pleasure? I mean, those types of things, and now that's coming out. That's technology
a big problem.
is coming out. Yes.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Wisdom for the Wilderness. That was a wild one in some ways,
Yes.
not one that we would have answered without the question being asked.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for joining us. You can always submit questions to us, and we'd love to answer them. And until then, we'll see you next week.